All right, we're back. So hopefully you guys had amazing breakouts, and the number one priority is to meet some new friends. So hopefully you had some good small group discussions about yourself, about power, and about your billboard. If you're open to sharing, I'd love to see people's billboards. I think that would be really, really fun. So go ahead and throw those in the chat as we queue up this next session, which I'm so excited about. Carrie Lou Dietrich, who is back by popular demand. Her sessions are always amazing. And Denise Pearson are going to talk about nailing an IPO. And who better to learn how to nail an IPO than Denise Pearson, who just had the most successful IPO in the history. So pretty amazing stuff. We're going to bring them on and learn how to nail an IPO.
Hello. We're so excited to be here with you guys today. What a fun first session. And I'm super excited to host Denise Pearson this morning. Denise is the CMO of Snowflake. And as Latney said, the Snowflake IPO this fall was the largest software IPO to date. And Denise has been there for the whole journey. 4.5 years, she's been building the category, building the differentiation, the product, the marketing team, the processes to prepare for this big day and what comes next for Snowflake. My name's Carrie Lou Dietrich, as Latney said, and I'm the former head of marketing for Atlassian. I was brought into Atlassian 2 years ahead of our IPO to help reposition the company from being focused on dev tools to becoming a collaboration tool for all. And the mystique and the hype that's around an IPO is extensive, and the confidentiality is tight, so it's a tight team working. And so I wanted to host this session to get behind the curtain. Also, because of Atlassian's successful outcome, I was able to become an executive coach, to move to Lake Tahoe, and I'm just about to embark on a book about how to market your way to a successful IPO and beyond. So if you've been part of an IPO, I'd love to interview you as well. But today we're going to talk to Denise, who's been through not only one IPO that was the largest of all time, but 3 different IPOs. So she's really getting the hang of it. Denise, can you take us behind the curtain and tell us a little bit more about your 3 journeys?
Hi, Carlo. So nice to be here with you and everyone else today. And thank you so much to the organizers as well. I just have so many fond memories from the event, last year, and I can't wait for us to get together again. So, and also feel this topic is a little bit less emotional, perhaps, than the previous, topic. So let's see how emotional we can make this. But yeah, this is my 3rd IPO. The first one I did was actually almost 20 years ago with a company called Genesis. It was a French company, and we were also a dual listed company. So we were listed on Euronext, which is the largest exchange in Europe, and Nasdaq at the same time. And that adds some complexity as well when you're on your 2 exchanges. But I feel like at that time, it was less of a hoo-ha. It was like, okay, we're doing an IPO, we're listed tomorrow, that's it. And there was nothing more than that. I think that today there might be more of that, marketing, around it. The second one was with Apigee in 2015. And Apigee, 1 year later, Apigee was acquired by Google. So I kind of left in that process. And at that time, we were listed on Nasdaq. And then most recently now with Snowflake, we did our listing on the New York Stock Exchange.
And so one of the things that surprised me about running an IPO process is it's kind of like a normal campaign in some ways, and marketing is kind of like normal marketing. All the values that we talked about last year and we're going to talk about today, like category creation, are really the basis. So tell us more about how you approached category creation and setting this vision that investors really are buying into, that what Snowflake can provide is so much bigger than any one little piece of what it's done in the past.
And also, I mean, the reason why investors should buy into you is the same reasons why customers, should buy into you, right? And investors, of course, they really care only about about your customers, right? How much do your customers care about you? That's how much they care about you as well. For many companies, the IPO becomes a repositioning exercise, and I would say that's probably not what you want to go through. You really want to take control of this process on your own. We began our positioning as the cloud data platform a year before the IPO, basically. So we had a chance to really establish and cement that positioning, how it is, right? It's not just about changing all your marketing materials and everything, right? All your salespeople, everyone needs to be able to kind of deliver that same consistent message. So we really had a year to really get that positioning established. And the reason why you don't want to do this during the IPO is because then basically your bankers will define, who you are, right? So there's just more chefs, in the kitchen working on this, positioning for you. So you really want to have this done, ahead of time. And also why this is important is that, of course, investors, they want to be able to put you into a category so they can compare you to other companies, right? They want to compare your growth rate to similar companies in your industry. They want to understand the TAM of that industry, all those sort of things. So it's important to have that done way ahead.
Right, and we did a lot of category creation work that included acquisitions, new naming of products, to really reestablish this vision of this total addressable market that we were going towards. A lot of brand work to discuss who we are, but then the first kind of asset that forced it all to a head of the IPO is the S1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of as you have to put it all down in writing. Tell us a little bit more about approaching that process and kind of the beginning of the IPO process.
Yeah, and actually this is sort of our final, S1. I got it actually sent to me two weeks ago. And that process began about 9 months. It's like having a baby. It began 9 months before, basically. So we started that process back in early January, and we had our head of content strategy. We kind of locked him in for 2 weeks so he could just start working on that first revision. And of course, if we look at this entire S1, which is hundreds of pages, it's really only 25, 30 pages. That is what's called the business section. And that's primarily the section you will be involved with, on the marketing side. So we, again, locked in our head of content strategy for 2 weeks, and he was just typing that out. So we had a first version for everyone to start, working on. That one has been rewritten, many times before the final version to come out. You have bankers involved looking at every single, word and changing things. But I felt that the result, it came out really, really well after all those eyes looking at it as well.
And yeah. One of the challenges is that it's so confidential, right? I mean, it sounds like you had your content person that could be involved. And when we got started, I was the only one who could know. Everything was a super secret. We ultimately got one of the visual designers involved because we did some visual design work. And the cover page of the S1 was one of the most highly debated aspects of our brand, kind of our rebrand, which seems so silly and trivial to me at the time. And then later I heard some CMOs talking about how some CMOs only get to participate in the cover of the S1. They're not part of this whole story of who the company is, what the opportunity is, what the risks are. How involved did you get to be in that process?
Yeah, I was quite involved already from the beginning there, together again with our head of content strategy. At that time, we were the only two on the marketing team that were really involved in this. Later on, our head of PR got involved at the later stage as well, because she and her team really needed to get educated on, all the things you can do and you can't do, etc. But I would say we only really had 3 people involved from the beginning. Later on, also our head of customer marketing and customer advocacy got involved, because you need a lot of sign off from customers and case studies and all those sort of things. So she got involved at a later stage, maybe 4 months before, just helping with all those customer case studies, the video case studies for your online roadshow video, those things. but we kept it really small. And I think also selfishly from my standpoint is that you want everyone focused on the business, right? It was the same thing for me. Every time there was a meeting on my calendar, I checked before, do I actually really need to attend this meeting? Because a lot of these meetings are just, lawyers talking about different things that I didn't need to be involved in it. So I really look at every meeting on my calendar. Do I need to be there or not? And I didn't even want to involve people that didn't need to, right? Because we have our day-to-day business to run as well.
And I love that outlook. And one of the things when we talked before that stood out to me was that at Atlassian, we had a lot of debate around advertising that we should do leading up to the IPO. So when I joined, they knew they wanted an IPO and they knew they wanted me to help them position for the IPO. And so we were constantly looking at it out in the distance. And there was this question, do you do broader sale advertising, broader scale, trying to reach investors? How do you factor your PR to be more investor friendly? And ultimately what we came down to was that I felt like that money wasn't as well spent as was spent on some of the primary customer driving programs and the customer word of mouth and evangelism. And it sounded like you guys kind of had that same approach. Like you just sounded so focused on the business instead of this distraction of what everyone else thinks is the sexiest thing you might ever do.
Yeah, I thought at my IPO at Apid, I thought it was kind of interesting to sit in those meetings and kind of learn the process. But those meetings are very, very, I think, boring for a marketer, right? It's not fun sitting with those lawyers, day out, day in. But this time, again, really wanted to remove the distraction, for everyone. And also, I'm not responsible for IR. So IR sits under our CFO. So our head of IR, our CFO, they've of course been working with investors for almost a year, right? Really preparing investors, talking to investors. Our CEO and CFO, they have, investors contacts from their previous companies that they worked with. So they've you cannot start selling your IPO, with your prospectus 3 months before, right? On the financial side, on the finance team and the IR team, they start that prep, much earlier. They go to the different investor, conferences, those sort of things. I was not involved in that part at all. I was maybe involved a little bit in terms of maybe some of the presentation materials that were created, etc. But on that side, in terms of selling and marketing to investors, I was not involved. I kept focus on again, our core business, which is our customers.
Right. And you didn't even invest in advertising that was outside of the scope of what you really wanted to build the business, right?
No, again, we kept focus on the same thing we've done before, but also we have to think about, we were also in a complete virtual world, as well. So, as everyone knows, of course, experience, from the beginning in March, all the traditional kind of advertising channels were gone, right, as well. So if our entire process wouldn't have been virtual, maybe there would have been things that we would have done, but we couldn't even do them, anyway. Those channels were not accessible, to us as well.
So tell me about where you put marketing investments in place leading up to it. Like in my world, I actually did a lot of investment in the visual brand. Atlassian was all wrenches and developer tool tactics, and we wanted to mature and grow up the brand. And then I also kind of overhired in PR because I knew that I needed to do a ton of PR ahead of the time when we might start to file, and that once we filed in that quiet period could go on and on. Because I had gone out at the time and interviewed the head of PR from Box and Salesforce, and I had 2 or 3 other companies to get advice on our PR. And they were like, sometimes you file and the market turns south, or sometimes you file and you have a bad quarter. And like, if that happens, you can't launch new campaigns, you can't do new stories, you can't tell the story. So your story really has to be out there before you go into this quiet period. So I in our instance, we invested there versus other places. Where did you really invest in building out the team in thinking ahead to this?
Yeah, we did actually run a pretty large conference. our annual summit is in the beginning of June. So we did that one. That was kind of the last big thing we could do for until the IPO, basically. So we did that one. We did revamp our website as well. Our website before was really more talking to the IT practitioners, and our whole goal this year has been really to expand across the enterprise and position Snowflake as a data platform for the entire enterprise. So our website changed to also talk to those audiences, and they had more of an enterprise feel to it than they had before. That was one thing we did as well. Yeah, I think we'd say those are the two primary things. We did a big conference, and then you have really 3 months where you're in that sort of quiet, period. So, and you really want to be careful, during that time. You don't want to jump the gun, as it's called, right? And if you do jump the gun, I mean, your IPO could be delayed, and that's gonna just cause all kinds of, hassle and cost and, lots of time and those things.
Let's talk about all the things that could go wrong, because I feel like an IPO is kind of a panic attack waiting to happen, because everyone's so focused on it, right? Like everyone across the company is kind of waiting to get liquid. Like everyone's trying to get secret information from your CEOs in every interview. We ended up having to swap out our CFO like a month or two before the IPO because of something that happened. But otherwise, the stock market behaved. One of our biggest problems was like the t-shirts sizing on the day of, and that the confetti didn't pop when we got to ring the bell. But those, are like fall into the trivial category. What were you really like conscious of and like watching for, kind of big, medium, and small?
Yeah, I mean, it's more the announcement in itself, that press release that is so kind of guarded with all that information, in it, who has access, to that information. Leaks, I mean, there were leaks, right? There were a lot of that's going to happen, but that's not really if you can prove that you did not leak this information, right? It's not really your fault. There will be people talking about your IPO. So there were all kind of speculations around the Snowflake IPO the weeks leading up to it. But again, as long as we hadn't done anything, we could not be at fault, if you will. A lot of training for the spokespeople as well, right? You can say things such as in the interviews like, wow, we have this incredible opportunity ahead of us. We think that we're going to be XYZ in a few years. So there's just a lot of different restrictions in terms of how you present the opportunity that is ahead of your company. So it was a lot around that, timing for press releases and media, when to invite them, at what time, and all those things. So it was just a lot of, I would say the last 4 days before, that's when it's really crunch time, and it's just, that's when you're awake 24/7, just to make sure nothing kind of goes wrong. And there will be curveballs sent your way for sure. Big ones, small ones at that time.
Is this where we get into the emotional part? Like what actually made you cry when you were like in the process? I mean, Denise, you seem so like strong and confident. It's like hard to imagine you crying, but maybe it made you sad for a minute.
No, I think the day before we worked with the New York Stock Exchange, and they sent a short clip when they were raising the banner outside the New York Stock Exchange. And there's audio around it, people are shouting, and that was kind of an emotional experience seeing that one go up. And the fact that we were not even there, and it's kind of, is this really happening now, right? We were all sitting home in our yoga pants, right? I mean, watching this. And also we made the day of event a big, here we can see it. You can see of course outside the stock exchange. I also love this picture with a fearless girl in front of it. I have created a canvas painting of this that I have in my office that I look at, because I think it's just an incredible shot. Then of course the bell ringing ceremony that we can see to the right here, it was all virtual. We were all Skyped in. So this was like 6:15 a.m. in the morning. We all had to get ready like 5:30 a.m. to be Skyped in. So we had only 20 people that could attend. So that's what the New York Stock Exchange could do. So we're all Skyped in here. I found a dress with the right snowflake blue collar and everything. I have that one on, but also have yoga pants at the bottom that no one sees. So I'm sitting actually in my kitchen here in my yoga pants. So but I think the New York Stock Exchange did an amazing experience just during the bell ringing as well. There was someone kind of just rallying everyone before, like it was just creating an amazing experience for everyone. And then after this, we did almost a 3-hour long virtual event for all our employees. We can go to slide 2 or 3?
Yeah, go to slide 2.
Yeah, we can start with this one. So we also created a unique gift for employees together with the New York Stock Exchange. So all employees, they haven't got it yet because they haven't made, they're not being shipped out. But the crystal, ice block that all employees, so 2,500 employees will get this one around the world. And usually, right, at an IPO, it's only those who go to New York. It's really executives and board members and some early employees, right? They get to experience this whole thing and get gifts and everything. But we decided to invest a lot of the budget that we get from New York Stock Exchange for employees. So everyone gets this personalized crystal ice block sent to their home in this custom box. We can see to the left here, just make it snow on it. There's a personal message from our CEO in the box. Also those coffee mugs to the right, they're getting 2 of those. And then the day of, they could go in and order their own snow day t-shirt in our own snow store. And that's a problem for everyone, is that the t-shirt. When I talk to all CMOs, the t-shirt is a big deal because you can't send out the right sizes. So everyone wants to send out this t-shirt to everyone in their offices globally. No one gets the right size and they all get upset about that. So instead, again, we're all home, right? So we let everyone just order from our snow store their exact size. So we don't have to deal with that, big hassle. So again, this box was created for all employees. And again, we spent essentially $300,000-$400,000 just on this gift for employees because we want to really take this opportunity to celebrate with them. And if we go to the third slide here, we also did the snow show together with the New York Stock Exchange, and they had an incredible host, a reporter. We can see him up there to the left, and he became like this cult figure for a company. Every day, people are still posting pictures of him. They call him Vestman. His name is really Ryan Green, but he's known as Vestman now at Snowflake because he was wearing the Snowflake vest and everything. And he led this show for all employees, taking everyone behind the scenes at the New York Stock Exchange. How do the mechanics work, to get the stock to start, trading, how buyers and sellers meet. We had employees from all over the world sending in messages to the snow show. We had interviews with our early employees. Our founders were speaking. Our founders' families were sending messages. We had over 10 customers also sending this congratulation messages to employees. They were interactive, trivia games where people could win, prizes, live. So we really took this opportunity to get everyone involved. And in some parts of the world, some people might be sitting together in someone's home where that was possible, but it really re-energized, I would say, the entire, company. And this was a quite emotional experience to be a part of, because everyone just had an amazing time, that day. And everyone got to be a part of the celebration wherever they were, around the world. So I can highly recommend, really, invest a lot in the entire employee experience.
It's so amazing because I would think that the moment when you realize that you're going to IPO and you don't get to ring the bell in person, all sorts of executives might be disappointed in some ways, but it seems like it turned out totally to be a blessing in disguise, because the day of, we went with the New York Stock or the NASDAQ, and you have this big outdoor thing, and you have all these important people coming, dinners with the bankers, and there's so much focus on this in-person event that you had this kind of freedom not to host, so you could really focus on including all of your employees. And I can see how meaningful that seems to everyone in the chat. Like the chat was blowing up, being like, wow, it's so inclusive. Lucky that you really got to do that. And I bet that if you had another IPO, you might kind of try to focus on that same breadth, because it seems like it was the biggest cultural inclusive moment that you might have had.
Yeah, but of course, I have never been to the New York Stock Exchange. I've been to NASDAQ before and done that experience. Of course, I was looking forward to, it will be so much fun to go there and see what it's like. But I think during the past 7 months, I think we're also used to disappointment after disappointment. It's kind of a part of every day now. Everything has been like, it is what it is. So every time you got a disappointment, you learn how to accept that, very quickly. Right? As soon as a decision was made, it was like, okay, we'll move on and accept what it is.
Right.
So I think that's what it's like. And I felt again that this became even better than if we would have done it in person. And we also still did. We did all the whole big Times Square takeover. I mean, that's something that the stock exchanges pay for.
Right.
You get a marketing budget, right? So they give you, stock exchange actually never gave us the exact amount. The Nasdaq did that, but they gave you basically a menu of different, marketing programs you can choose from, and then you pick kind of what makes sense, to you. We did pick the Times Square takeover as well because the footage is kind of so great to have for years to come. They also offered us to lit up at night several buildings in San Francisco, like the City Hall and the etc. So we did that part as well. A lot of people went into San Francisco opening champagne bottles in the evening, and we hadn't seen each other, many of us, for like 5-6 months. So there were people from different departments just meeting up at a distance in San Francisco or New York as well, and everyone was sharing pictures, about that. So we did again do some of those things like the advertising more for the footage. We also at the stock exchange, we basically want to create this snow experience of the entire stock exchange. So they worked with us to create this complete digital snowstorm effect, at the stock exchange. So we also have a lot of footage of that we can use moving forward for different things as well.
It really is so exciting because so much work has come to that moment that I was hired to a company for the sole purpose of helping with the IPO. And then it was like always 12 to 18 months out, and it's kind of rolling, and then you can't tell anyone, like, even your friends and family really, right? Because there's all these legal restraints. But then what we debated a lot as an executive team was, how do you help the company from taking their foot off the gas? Like, we made it, we did it, we're like liquid after our free up period, right? And like, do people just like go on vacation and like take a break? There was this story about how the day that Amazon IPO'd, Jeff Bezos like didn't even have a party. Was like, everyone's at work, we're serving customers, like it's in the rearview mirror, it's not even a thing. And we went back and forth around how to position it with like adequate celebration and adequate humility to say, like, this is just like one campaign and the step of campaigns, and the real thing is like first quarter results, second quarter results, 1 year, 2 year, 10 billion, not like 1 billion. Like, how did you guys think about that and navigate?
Yeah, but we actually did give all employees a day off. So we gave them a snow day, because it was a snow day. So everyone got a snow day, so they could really just sit back and relax and enjoy the show. And it was, of course, an early morning and everything. And so we gave everyone that day off to really be able to celebrate. Also, their families were sitting with them, right, watching the snow show as well. But also during that show, we made a big effort to talk about that this is, again, it is a milestone, and we're now entering the 2.0 of Snowflake. So also hearing our founders who've been here for 8 years talking about, okay, this was the 1.0 phase, and they talked about their excitement for the future and the 2.0 phase, of our company. So that entire show was more focused on what's coming in next,
right,
and making everyone excited about that. We have hundreds of employees that have joined Snowflake in this virtually. I mean, in the last 6 months. So for them, we want them to feel like this is the right time to join our company. And so that was a big effort, not about, okay, this is the end all be all. I mean, it's really again what's coming next and all the things we can do now. Snowflake is entering this what we call the adolescence, phase, and we're just getting started.
It was kind of funny because from a PR perspective, we got so much PR ahead of the IPO, and then of course during the IPO, and then there was a tiny letdown after the IPO when you're like a small fish in a big pond now. You're not a unicorn that's like so anticipated. You're just like a tech company whose stock is down. And I think for any of us who have worked for high growth tech, like the highs are highs, but the lows are lows. Like, I don't know, Zoom is down 27% or something over the last 3 weeks. Like, yeah. JFrog IPO'd and went up and down. Snowflake has had its own up and downs. And so, how do you think about keeping your team focused not focused on the stock price, I guess, and focused on the fundamentals. Because now you're there in this echo chamber of analysts who are like, Snowflake, whoever, any company has no chance. Like, it's all hype. They're horrible, right? And it goes from being all excitement and possibility to this like real world, I think.
Yeah, I think I made a point of it. I'm never going to talk about the IPO or stock ever. I never talk about it. I do check the stock price in the morning because I need to know, right? If something is happening on the stock market, I kind of need to know from a communication standpoint, if there's anything we need to be on top of. But otherwise, I never, ever talk about it. So when we're in our marketing all hands, all meetings, it's all about what's coming next. What is the next big thing we're going to do together and build excitement about those things. And again, the stock price, right? I mean, you cannot have your emotions tied into that price. Most employees can't sell that stock now anyway, right? They have to wait until that lockup period is over. And so I think it's important to really make an effort not. It is what it is. You can't control the stock price. That's what the market cannot control. The only thing we can control is our execution and really serving our customers. So really putting the focus on that and stay core to the values you have as an organization, right? You can't control that stock. So control, like we've learned so much in this past 7 months, but you can only control the things you can control.
Right.
That's what we focus on.
And there is that aspect of teaching everyone in the company, public company accounting. Like it suddenly becomes relevant. And I felt like it was easier for me because at Oracle, I got a lot of insight. I was running awareness advertising. And so I got a lot of insight into our accounting because at the end of the fiscal year, they would send me money that they'd left over because we wanted to have this like evenness. Or sometimes I'd have to give back like $4 or $5 million in the last couple months and try to find it. And so teaching your teams how to be really consistent because every quarter's results matter because there's like this spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, you can never exceed your budget, right? And we haven't done that before either. We were very kind of diligent in terms of how we're managing the marketing budget, but you can clearly never, ever kind of exceed your budget. You need to kind of really follow, the plan as you have given, the guidance. And yeah, and in terms of accounting, also our CFO spends quite a lot of time on that in the all hands, just explaining what's behind certain numbers and why we have to do certain things because certain numbers are important and those sort of things. So we actually have taken the time, even during the last year, to talk about what the numbers means and why investors care about certain numbers more than others and those things.
Right, like new SaaS revenue versus overall revenue, right? Like if the new numbers aren't coming in, the market doesn't buy it. And I always had a hard time. I did investor relations early in my career, and like I got so upset because we would give guidance, we would meet or exceed guidance, and they would still punish us because it didn't just matter what our results were. It mattered what they had built their own expectations on. And if the employees don't understand that and they're like, we must be doing bad if the stock price is down. And you're like, no, it's all this game of the stock market's expectations. Like what's going to happen with coronavirus? What's happening with other tech companies? What's happening with your own future guidance that you're giving, even though your numbers were good? That was a hard learning and teaching opportunity for me, I felt like, with my team.
Yeah, and again, I let the CFO speak to that in all hands. As I said, I avoid any conversations around the IPO. Of course, that day, we talked about it, but since then we've never mentioned it. We've never talked about the stock price. I can only control kind of marketing at Snowflake and exceed expectations on our customers. Right, that's kind of what we keep focused on.
We're moving into the Q&A period now. I think there's a couple of good questions from the chat that I can share. And I think Latny and JJ. Hi, JJ.
Well, hello. I know I look a little bit strange today, but being an empowered CMO is sometimes digging deep when you got to be there for your ladies. So I am here.
Put those yoga pants on, baby. Thank you.
Please don't put this on social media, but I'm here.
You're vulnerable and open and
That's
beautiful.
right.
Yeah.
Thank
Well, so, I'm trying to get as many CMOs involved that have a shared experience. And so I guess for Denise, Carrie Lou, and JJ, a big question around S1. Yep. How you make the S1 the best document ever. What's the outline of it? Just everything we need to know about S1.
But I would say as well, when you start the process, right, go and of course look at other S1s. So go and look at maybe other successful, IPOs or any of your industry, peers and read their S1s. Again, when you look at the document, it looks pretty daunting, but it's really only 25 pages that you need to read of the document. The rest is more about, risks and factors and those things. So go through it and see what you like. And also the bankers kind of will give you examples too, right? Here are 5 S1 business sections we think are really good for these reasons. So look at this. So that's a way to get inspired of what a good S1 looks like, but then also start early as well. So start, like I think we did it the right way. We started there in January, right? Let's start a first draft so you can sort of build on that so it doesn't become like you don't scramble, at the end with that section.
Yeah.
I think we didn't talk about it yet, but there's really 3 different materials that we provided. So the S1 was one. There's this org deck, which is kind of describing everything you do as a company, not only the company strategy, but the operating principles for every team and department. And then there's this Net Roadshow tour where people who you can't meet in person watch a video about who your company is and why it's important. And I feel like all 3 of those were kind of equally important. But what stands out to me and why I'm so excited JJ is a part of this conversation is it's really the manifestation of the category and strategy work that you should have been working on all along. It's like, what is it's not that different in some ways than a fundraising deck for your Series C or D or whatever. Like you're trying to describe, who you are, why it matters, who the competition is, what the future holds, and why you're operating exceptionally. And so I think, benchmarking it to other people and makes it not that different than other creative briefs in a different way.
Yeah. So thank you guys for having me. And I have to tell you, Denise, I was so inspired by your pictures because this is mine, if you can see it.
Yeah.
Outside. We were NASDAQ, not New York Stock Exchange, but this was us outside. And I have some fabulous, I don't know what at New York Stock Exchange does, but NASDAQ, they take over all the billboards in Times Square. So your messaging is across like 18 billboards. And I don't have the picture with me, but I know Dave Peterson, I sent it to him. There's just a picture of me standing in the middle of Times Square under like 18 billboards, digital billboards of my category going, yes. It was like the best picture ever. So, I think, from my IPO experience, we did not have the luxury of time. So we went out, I was at Tenable, cybersecurity company prior to where I'm at now at Amplitude. We selected our bankers. So before you even start the process of drafting, you select your bankers, right? And there's a whole host of bankers and underwriters and lead underwriters and things that your CFO knows all about, book runners and all that good stuff. When we picked our bankers, I think it was March, we rang the bell in July. So we hadn't even started the drafting of the S1 until I'd say probably mid to late March. And we submitted it. So there's this thing called the printer, which Denise said, I'm sure you probably experienced going to the printer. I thought I was like, what is the printer? Is it like this big white room with like Oompa Loompas that like come out with the S1? And you spend a lot of time at the printer with like 80 of your favorite bankers and lawyers and auditors. S1, but we had no time to do it. So basically my CFO and I he said, you're taking the front half and I'm taking the back half. I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, all right, I'm taking the front half, which is the business section, right? And so I can relate to Denise. I got a stack of about 25 S1s from every company in software that we would be benchmarked close to go read. And so you can see there is a very similar theme, right? Like your business overview, your market opportunity, your competitive landscape, your product differentiators. There's just, it's textbook in that respect. But I'll tell you, and I'm not going to go, because we're going to actually talk about this in the category session. But if we didn't have as a company that category story nailed, then we would have been up S Creek, because basically what would have happened is, and it did happen. I remember I was in Hong Kong at a meeting and I was on a call with 70 bankers and there was a draft of the first paragraph and we could not get off the second sentence because every single person had to put their opinion in.
Oh God, that
So
sounds horrible.
Right? So think of your worst meeting and then multiply it by 80 people, right? And so I called the guy from Morgan Stanley after the call. I said, I'm going to be on a 16-hour plane ride when we did those things from Hong Kong to San Francisco. Let me just draft it. It won't be perfect. It'll be wrong in places, but let me just give us something to work from. And thank goodness I did that because I created the foundation, and I had the foundation in my head because we had the category work done. But yeah, the S1 is grueling, and you always have to remember it's a legal document. Like we understand the market and marketing power of an IPO, but it is a financial event first and foremost. So you have to like put aside your you know, I had to put aside like my stylistic words matter point of view because you have literally 25 lawyers looking at, we debated for 45 minutes at the printer one night on using one word. And I literally had to like get up and walk out of the room. And so at some point you have to realize that you don't control the process, but getting in the process in the right way is so critical. And yes, there's a whole host of other things, and I won't take too long. There's a whole host of other things that are important, like selling the analysts. I think, Carrie Lou, that's what you industry standard or something that we just used, but it's when you're teaching basically all the analysts that are out there selling your stock and going to be tracking your stock. You're teaching them every aspect about your business, and it's funny because it's like there's probably something in the water. I had to get my wisdom teeth out the day of our teach-in, and so the night before I had to go to Johns Hopkins Medical Emergency Room in Baltimore at 3 a.m., which was fun, and go to a dentist. And he said, my CFO, who's this guy's dentist, he said, I've been under instruction from your CFO to give you enough drugs to get through the teach-in and get on a plane to get home to San Francisco and get your wisdom teeth out. So I did the very important teach-in, hopped up on Valium.
Oh my gosh.
There's probably a parallel. But
Awesome.
the whole thing's important. So, you know, look, the IPO for us who've gone through it is an amazing experience. For those of us who haven't gone through it, if you're lucky enough to go through it, it's what I say, the corporate equivalent of your wedding day. So.
Love it. Love it. We had a bunch of questions also about CFO, CMO relationship. And so Denise, I'm sure you have some opinions. Carrie Lou, I know you do too. And, you know, let's throw another rock star in the mix with Maria Pergolano and really get it covered. So who wants to go first?
Well, I'll talk about it a little bit because we went through 3 CFOs on our journey. So we had a CFO who I loved, and we had this great relationship, and everything was easy and fun. And then like him and the CEO, we had another CFO, and he was like really structured and private, but had been a public company CMO. And so he really like gave us the culture, because basically what you're doing in the year or 2 years ahead of your IPO is pretending to be a public company. So we would try to close the books, and we would like run ourselves to close the books as fast as possible. We would run ourselves to do a earnings call. We would do fake earnings calls. We would have auditors come in, right? You're like legally responsible to have auditors come in, but we'd audit ourselves to these higher levels where we were just trying to get everyone used to being in a public company. And if you've started your career at a public company, there's all these things you know that are implicit knowledge that you forget other people just don't know. And at a high growth startup, it's like a lot of people whose it's their first job or second job, or like, you know, the CEOs have never worked at another company ever. And so this like act of the CFO setting the culture, and then our job to help everyone across the company like not resent it, like be excited about it, because there's so much culture clash in like, we're losing who we were. There's all these old timers who really care about the company and the culture and are like, think we're selling out to the man. You know, there's like this constant conflict between people who are like, no, this is part of the journey. We can have our culture and be more successful. So I felt like and the first CFO was really focused on the culture. The second CFO wasn't focused on the culture. And I felt like I had to play a bigger role in helping the company understand that this was good for us. And they knew they were going to make money, but what does this mean to their daily lives as individual people? And are they creating roadblocks or not really leaning in enough to get us to the performance level that we need to be at to be successful? And then, you know, our third CFO was also awesome. He came from he was the chairman of our board. And at that point, the script was a little bit more written. But I mean, I think that to Denise's earlier point, the team is tiny, right? Like you're in these internally to your company, you're in meetings with like 6 or 8 people that know, and there might be 40 bankers, but only a small team internally. So you really have to have good relationships and be in alignment and support each other, both privately and publicly.
Denise, thoughts on like leading up CFO relationship?
Yeah, again, I mean, like Carol said, right, we were also kind of acting like a public company probably the 6 months, you know, before, you know, the IPO. Snowflake was a place where we always shared the board deck. All board presentations were shared with the entire company in the all hands. So all information was very open. And that, of course, was a big change for everyone, that now we won't know things until everyone else will know about it. So that has been a change, but also then communicating why we can't do this, and explain kind of why things have to be in a certain ways. I think we spent a lot of time on those things in our all hands with all employees, and we were very transparent with employees from that standpoint. With the CFO relationship, it was in this IPO at Snowflake, it was very much like, okay, Denise, you run this person run this. We divided things up, but it was very clear what is everyone responsible for, and that's it. And really remove distractions. I hardly talked to our CFO during the process. He did his thing, and I trusted he, of course, does his thing. He trusted that I will do my thing. So it was very just, you know, everyone focused on their thing, basically.
I think that I think Denise is right. Just and congratulations, like massive IPO, Denise, right? Like just incredible. I think that relationship though, like what would maybe allow Denise to do that is the trust that's built ahead of time, right? As CMOs, our job is first to the C-suite, even before the team. I would say that I agree with Jennifer in that this is a financial event, but you're going to watch 9% of your proceeds go to people outside of your company. This is a very expensive financial event. And if marketing does not match that by leveraging it as a marketing event, you have not done your company good service. And the amount of there's a range of how well of companies, even great companies, leverage that IPO. You get, I don't know if people know this, but millions of dollars of marketing benefit from the exchange that you choose. And there's a lot that goes into negotiating that. The CMO will spend a lot of time with that, hopefully. I have seen experiences where the CMO is not very involved, starting at the front in the negotiation and choice of the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ in early meetings, and you're giving up value, you know, the future value of the company. And so that relationship, I think, is really important. And then making sure there's no ego from either side in that, so that it's not just finance led.
I think that's a good point. Many CFOs actually let the marketing team decide which exchange to go with, because the difference is really the marketing proposals that they're giving you, to your point, Maria. So I think for everyone who will be involved with it, you're most likely going to be involved in that decision. For Snowflake, we made the decision based on who is a customer of Snowflake. So New York Stock Exchange is a big customer of Snowflake. That's why we went with them. And the last time when I was at IPO, we picked NASDAQ, and one of the reasons for that was they had this amazing event venues. They have the Market Site Event Center on Times Square. They have the Entrepreneurial Center in San Francisco, great event venues. And we all know how much it costs, right, to get those spaces. And it's fully catered. So these are really highly expensive type of events that you essentially get from that marketing in a budget. So at that point, it was really based on, yeah, NASDAQ had the best event offering for us that we could tap into.
Are you guys hearing Carrie Lou?
No.
Sorry,
Well,
I put it on mute to not like break into anyone. I should leave it.
Well, you know, it's not a meeting without someone talking on mute. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you.
I was just gonna say that Atlassian didn't have a real like customer engagement kind of arm, and a lot of the value that NASDAQ gave us was related to that. Entertain your top customers and give them once in a lifetime experiences. Because you also with the NASDAQ can go back and ring the bell the next year on your 1 year anniversary and have a big group of people that come. Sometimes you can buy additional bell ringings. At Oracle, we did a lot of product launches with the bell ringing with your top customers because everyone wants to experience it once in their life. But so I do think when you look at the two marketing proposals of the NASDAQ versus the New York Stock Exchange, what Denise said is totally true. It's just so relevant to what makes sense to your company now, because they're similar, but they can be really different based on your own experiences.
Yeah. And the bell ringing, they can bring that to your event too, right? So they can bring it to your annual user conference, and then thousands of people can do that bell ringing at your user conference, right? So that's kind of a cool thing. And that is then broadcasted right on, CNBC and those news channels. That's cool.
Micheline, I don't know if Micheline is here, but in the chat, joined JFrog right before their IPO also this fall. And they listed with the NASDAQ, and they brought the bell ringing out to the JFrog parking lot and built like the NASDAQ background so that they could all be outside and experience it. So it is funny how this time of crisis has created this creativity that might, like, that's awesome. Like we might have brought the bell out to California. All of our people are coming from Australia. To fly from Australia to New York, was really limiting for including more people.
Yeah, JFrog's IPO was very nicely done, I must say, with that ringing out the bell.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all mind reviewing, Carrie Lou, you said there's three big, the S1 I caught, and some sort of org something.
Yeah.
So can you go through those three things again?
Maria,
Sure.
do you want to talk about them? Oh,
I just summarized what you guys had written, or said, but essentially agree with everybody's thoughts in preparing ahead of time. The second I got to active campaign, we're about 100 million in revenue, so you can see that we're edging towards that. I was on the phone with bankers asking for relevant, essentially other peer roadshow decks, looking how the market, because it was now a year and a half later, was looking at TAMs, things like that, so that I could be getting the company ready, so that it was, I loved the comment from Denise and Carolo about having, everything is kind of preparation to the category. But then you will have likely around 6 months before a board meeting where the executive team will present in front of a group of bankers. These are people that are on your side. They are going to start putting the documents together to sell you. So they're just there to listen, hear how you tell your story, and they're going to start building a draft of an S1. And then the CMO will get involved and help work on that business section. You have to be careful there. There's a lot of copying, pasting from previous S1s. It may not capture you perfectly. So you do want to review, but then immediately you'll start preparing for a roadshow deck and a roadshow video. And again, the bankers will give you references to ones that have experience doing that, but using that to craft your narrative. It sounds like some of the people here have done similar, but I'm thrifty. I was trying to think about what other assets I could get. How could I reuse pieces of this? Because you're spending, the roadshow video alone will be $100,000 plus expense for the organization. How do you get some great videos that you can use in other places as well?
Yeah.
And I just put mine into the chat because we did the same thing, Maria. I was like, I'm not spending all that money on a video that we can't use for demand gen. And so the roadshow for us, we looked at all these different net roadshow videos, and there were a bunch where it was just the CEO talking the whole time, and it was so boring. And we just didn't want to bore people to tears. So we ended up doing like an intersperse of talking heads, and then customer videos, and then this product video. And we also, I had meant to ask Denise earlier about whether she used internal or external resources, but we used an external resource on the video because it needed to move so fast. It needed to be the highest quality. And and it needed to be kind of an all-in process.
And you can go on retailroadshow.com. You can go and see all IPO roadshows there. You can see the upcoming ones. You can get a lot of inspiration of what others are doing. Yeah, we use an external company. I can highly recommend them. They're called Glass and Marker. They basically do all the big B2B. You use them too, yes. They do the B2B, IPOs essentially. So they're more experienced in that, and they just have their process nailed down. They do an incredible job, and it made everything so easy. My time at Apogee, it was not as of a great experience. We used with a company that was sort of the second time they did this. That was a pretty bad experience. So work with as many pros as you can. That's going to make everything so much easier. And they also developed a deck for the roadshow too. So both the video and the deck that your CEO and CFO will use. One thing we did not talk about is that org meeting. So the org meeting happens about maybe 6 weeks or something like that before the IPO. And that's when all department leaders on the executive team will go and present their business to all the analysts. So all the analysts on the buy sell side that are going to follow your company, it's really an educational event. It's basically, we did it virtually, but it was like a 5-hour big overview of our business. So that's something you as CMOs will do. And it was quite nice to do that virtually, not having to stand in front of these 100 bankers. So it was quite nice to again sit in the yoga pants and do this too.
And in that org deck, there's a whole section that's just about marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like that. So that's a lot of the materials you're providing are about the overall company and strategy and brand. But in the org deck, it's like, how does marketing work? Like what percentage of your leads come from SEO versus paid advertising? And how are you thinking about that? Because what they're really looking at is they're trying to backward architect your business and model their own growth numbers off of it.
Yeah, they want to understand sort of everything about your how you run your business. So you have to present the different metrics, you're tracking, the different, how basic does your customer acquisition process exactly look like from a marketing standpoint? How does that align, with your sales, organization, the team? What does your organization, look like, and how does your marketing different from other companies? So it's a good exercise to do. That deck I did is a deck that I can use for so many other things afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I have one pitch topic, Latney, if you'll let me bust in with one pitch topic. I feel like it's really important as female leaders to educate ourselves and educate our teams and be maybe off the record mentors to women about their investing. Because like today in the United States, more than 85% of women don't control any of their own investing. And an IPO, or even like coming and leaving a company before their IPO and, having acquisitions and getting options is like a big learning curve for employees. And I've been mentoring this one young Black woman who left a company that's really hot, where I was like, I'll buy your pre-stock IPO. I'll buy your pre-IPO stock if we can like transact it. But I'm trying to encourage her to do it. And she's like, oh, I just leave companies and let some of my options expire. I don't understand how it works. I don't have the money to front it. And so, once the company goes through an IPO, there's this lockup period, but then there's all these people that don't really understand investing. And to the degree it's possible to like bring in experts to do lunch and learns, to show some people who are safe wealth managers, because like there's all sorts of sharks after you, before and after, that want to buy your stock. And I think it's really important for us and important for us as individuals. Like I make more of my money through my investing than through some of my work. And like, how do we help women, especially, and diverse people, especially, but really all the people on our team learn to understand what this means and how they make use of this, for their retirement and their future life.
Yeah, in my 20s, I had no clue about these things, whatsoever, either. And also from a company standpoint, you can't go out and make any advice, right? So the company there is restricted in terms of the different, those educational.
Oh yeah, you kind of have to just give them options.
Yeah.
And maybe say, this is the one I'm choosing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's more than for your own department, right? To see, okay, these folks in their 20s, they might not really understand some of the ins and outs here, maybe give some advice, one-on-one to them.
But I think, again, it's not just the IPO that gives us this responsibility. I mean, kind of teaching some of our team financial management best practices, I think is really important, especially for women, who might not be focused on that or have that mentoring in their family or from other women in their life.
So we've got a couple more minutes. I've got my own question I want to ask you ladies, because you guys have both been through IPOs. And so you've seemed to have done a good job picking companies that are IPO worthy.
That's it. The thing is, right? You have to think like a VC, right? When you choose your companies. Again, I did not choose to work for Snowflake because of a potential IPO. It was a decision made with my heart. And before joining Snowflake, I was looking at different, options, and like this was a small company. There were like 100 employees there. And it was really a decision made from the heart. And I really loved the founders, the people, and the product. I could see the enormous potential in the product, something I could relate to myself in marketing, where we have data all over the place, and the ability to bring it together was a big thing. But yeah, it's you also have to think a little bit like kind of you invest your time. The most important asset we have every day is our time. For investors, it's their money. For us, it's their time. Where I'm going to invest my time then. But again, I don't think about is an IPO outcome. I haven't thought about that. I'd be more.
But what advice do you both have for? I mean, we're all in flux. There's no we're all moving around.
Yeah.
So when we're picking that company.
Yeah.
I agree with
what do we look for?
I agree with Denise. Like, I've started to think of myself almost more of an investor than a marketer, because basically what you're looking for is the category, right? Is this a category that has a big enough addressable market to get really big? Is this product a leader? Are the customers really rabid about loving it? Do you have confidence in this executive team? Like, is this their first rodeo, or is this a multi-time CEO that you think could take you all the way? I think I've been like working on an article in my head for like an entire year about how to pick your next CMO role, like an investor picks investments.
We got to write that one.
I'm working on it. I know you this is another good trigger. And I've been interviewing VCs. And the thing that's terrifying is you only get one job. You're going to work for 70 hours a week, and you might pick a winner. You might get lucky. You might pick a dud. And an investor, they get to pick 4 or 5 a year. And so they have this diversification that you can't risk. And so, it's scary when you're between jobs. And I run this peer coaching circle for CMOs that are looking for their next role. And these incredibly powerful women and men are at this time of vulnerability, and they're like thinking about settling. And I just think, like, if you look at Denise's career, and like Denise is arguably one of the most powerful CMOs in Silicon Valley right now, making a good pick on a great product is a life-changing decision. And so settling because you're having like a moment of, because you're having a summer of insecurity between two roles is a really big decision. So I think some of it is like having confidence in yourself, holding out, and using your best business strategy mind to pick the winners.
I mean, a lot of folks that say that, I'm going there to work there for 2.5 years to build up my portfolio there. Then I'm going to go to the next one and build up my portfolio. I don't think that way at all. I mean, it's for the long run. But it's interesting. There are a lot of people that think that way. They just hop around to build up their portfolios. And so they have 5 companies in their portfolios, just like an investor, has, right? So again, I think that's a decision everyone has to make if that's what they want to do. I never want to feel like I work for the money. I want to feel like I'm work on something that's going to make a difference and that I'm going to enjoy doing every day. I think that's number one priority for me personally.
I think there's also a huge dose of humility. Like, I'm so thankful, that I was born in the United States, that I was born at a time when women could get educated and like where I was born at a time where a woman could be a saleswoman at the beginning of her career, that, like I ended up at Atlassian because the people I'd worked with at the last 2 companies were like, you've got to join. And I was like, no way, it's totally a loser. It's going to be a career limiting move for me. And they convinced me to join. And so I feel like, there's a ton of luck about timing and people. And so just, humility for us and honoring your own journey is really important, because you never know what's going to happen. And you can't really compare yourself to other people. Because, we all might not be as amazing yet as Nora or Roxanne or other fantastic CMOs that we have in this forum, but you can just honor your own journey and find your own path. And good things.
I think Patty kicked us off with the jungle gym, right? Not a ladder. No more ladders. It's a jungle gym. Well, this has been amazing. We've got a minute or so left. Any closing thoughts or any closing thoughts before we move along?
I think be an investor. Like, try to start looking at other companies and just dabbling in evaluating and looking at the investor materials. It helped me a lot that at Oracle, I tracked all of the earnings calls for all of our competitors, IBM, SAP in particular. And so the more you, and Maria, who was on before but jumped off, I know Maria took a class through Wharton, I think, on financial accounting for executives. The more you can understand about how investors look at your company, the better marketer you're going to be to help your company both market to customers who are going to love you, which is the critical path, but also to understand how the world sees your company and make it more successful.
What do you think, Denise?
No, I echo that completely. And also, when you go through an IPO, there are more offers being presented to you, right? You get invited to participate in things. And of course, what you want to do is to be able to invest in other IPOs, right? And that's usually not possible. I remember when I wanted to go in on the Marketo IPO, and a banker said like, no, that's already, you can't get in on that, right? So you want to work then with certain bankers who can help you get into IPOs. You can be a part of those, POPs and things like that. So I think, yeah, I agree with Carlo on that one. Start really investing yourself, and you're going to make more money on that than you do with your day job.
There's a couple of platforms. I almost took a CMO job for this company called Forge, Forge Global. Carta's launching something, and then there's another one, Shares Post, that let you potentially invest in pre-IPO stocks. Like,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, if there's someone that you think is really interesting and you kind of know, like, I think this company's hot, the growth is hot, I buy their product and everyone's rabid for them, there are some opportunities. It's high risk, right? I mean, it's like high risk, like working for a pre-IPO company. But again, I think just dabbling and seeing what people are looking at is helpful in positioning yourself.
All right. Well, can we get just a huge hell yeah for Denise and Carrie Lou and some of our pinch hitting panelists? That was amazing. Thank you. I need to go back through the chat and re-listen to this because I couldn't take notes. So good. So good.